get started, we've got some friends here from Marriage Matters Jackson, and they want to do a quick announcement. They have to get going to another location, so I told them they could have the very first slot. So here they are.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Half of you know me, half of you don't. So the half that know me, you know that I used to be on staff here and went to school here and was on staff in the admissions office. So I used to come to SAPA and do all the fun things you're doing. Just want to say congratulations. You guys are all, you have your jobs and everything's good. And I know things have been weird around here, but I'm really happy that things are settling in and moving forward great. So that's exciting. But we're doing a fun thing. We actually host our events for Marriage Matters Jackson all over town. So we have things at coffee houses and restaurants and different churches and all this kind of stuff. But we promote, prepare, and preserve healthy marriages, and that's what we do as our vision and mission. And part of it is we want to have these sort of pop-up pep talk events that were just a quick event, not anything that's extensive, but to give people kind of a date night, a fun night to do things. So we did marriage and parenting earlier this year. Now we're going to do on Thursday how to survive the holidays. And you've probably seen our signs that we put out between here and the library and the science building. And we are just bringing it to Spring Arbor. So it's open to the community, but we really wanted to be able to serve you guys. And so when we were deciding where to have these, I said, I'd really like to host one out at Spring Arbor because I think it would be fun to give something back to them as far as staff, faculty, students, whoever is out there that's in a relationship that we all need to know how to survive the holidays. And so instead of the holidays being a stressful time of, oh yeah, now we're going to have to argue about where we spend our time and our money and all that good stuff, just a fun way to get on the same page. And so that's why we created this event. It will be this Thursday night here in this very room, so join us back here. And it's just another way to just give people an opportunity to, the part of our vision to preserve healthy marriages. We say people stop dating after they get married. They think, well, I'm married, done, I don't have to put any more work in there, and that's untrue. So we want you to be able to have fun times together, come and talk about serious topics, but in a light way, and just have a lot of fun. So we'll have some snacks and some good tips, and it'll just be a nice little night out to start preparing for the fun couple months ahead. We brought 2 sets of tickets, so 2 couples can come. So Joe said he's got a fishbowl here. Some people in this, so. All right, well, I get to draw. Okay. Don't forget. All right, so 114. Okay, I like the arrangement. I know, I like to say both. 531. And if you can't use it, Penny's husband Bob has been our friend with Marriage Matters Jackson since the very beginning. So he's walked a long road with us, but this would be fun for you guys to come. Okay, and the other one, I need a drum roll on this one. 114, 538. All right. And if you can't use it, find somebody at your table that can, and we would love to see you guys. We're really excited about this and really want to see. I told them, I said, the people at Spring Arbor will show up. Just don't make a fool out of me to my staff, please. I said, these people will love this. This will be great. We'll have a good time. So come on out on Thursday night. One more thing I want to mention to you, there's a big upswing in divorce with people who are in the second half of their lives. People think, oh, you're safe by the time. I get a lot of people that go, oh, we've been married 30 years, we're good. No, you're not. You need to keep working at it. Don't coast at that point. And so we created a workshop called The Second Half of Marriage, and it's on January 16th through 17th, a weekend away at the Chelsea Comfort Inn. It is a wonderful, wonderful workshop. It's been a lot of fun. The people that have participated before. It's starting with reinventing yourselves and saying, okay, who are we now as empty nesters? And maybe you're retired, maybe you're not. We've got both. It's a big spectrum between 45 and 70. There's a lot of things that are happening in there. We talk about the empty nest, career changes, health and body issues, new family dynamics, like kids growing up, and how does that change everything. So the people that have gone to this really enjoy it, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that that's out there, and just another fun opportunity if you're in the second half of your marriage to hold on and do things to strengthen it instead of just going, hey, we're good. Yeah, you're probably good, but keep it good. So, all right, thanks you guys, good to see you. We're now going to Western High School to save all their relationships. Okay. Pick a partner. Small job.
Okay, just quickly as we have been doing. Let's stand and read the verse of the year together. Luke 10:27-28. He answered,
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live.
Let's pray as we get started. God, thanks again for the opportunity to be here together, just take a break from the day and have some fellowship and have some snacks and hear some wisdom from our panel this morning. We thank you for each one that can be here. And we ask for your wisdom as we try to apply these truths to our lives. In Jesus' name. All right, so today we have a panel of distinguished guests that are going to talk to us a little bit about health and fitness. I thought in our executive team as we got together thinking about what could we do in November that would be a worthwhile discussion or something new that we haven't done before for SAPA. And we thought, what better thing to have than some tips on how to stay fit or eat more healthy in a better, more healthy way. I don't know how to say that, but make better decisions when it comes to food as we head into a time where there's a lot of opportunities to maybe make some great decisions. So come on to the panel and grab a seat. Let me quickly tell you who we have here until they get seated so I know where they're going. Okay, so right here to my left, Charlie Kunzelman, who is a founder, I believe, or founder of Fitness, co-founder of Fitness Finders. You may be familiar with the toe tokens if you have children that have gotten those, or maybe you've gotten those. I don't know how old people are in here. Most people probably born before 1996. That's a joke from last SAPA. I'm not sure if you were here. And then we have Bethany Butterfield from our own HHPR department, and Beth Lyman, Char Wells, and Deb Barland, also from HHPR, and let me get the name right, Brenda Red from our Cougar Den. So this is a panel. What I've asked them to do is to just kick things off with just a quick tip. What is one thing that we could do to be healthier? And so I'm going to hand the mic off here to Charlie to go first, and you can kind of take turns or pass mics around. There's another one right there. Here we go.
Well, good morning. My wife is supposed to be here, but she had another appointment, so I apologize for that. She's on the board here, and she's the other co-founder of Fitness Finders, which we are now have exited, and our son-in-law is now running. The little tip that I'd like to give you today is that little things mean a lot. And those little things are just for both the very fit and also for the very inactive. And by this I mean when you go to an airport and you have a stairway and an escalator side by side, if you count 300 people, 3 people will take the stairs and 297 will take the escalator or the elevator, whichever you do. You'll also, when you know the parking lot, you'll see people drive around until they find the parking lot closest to the door. And those are opportunities for exercise that most people miss. To tell you a little bit about how that all works is if you were a secretary in the 1970s and your president gave you a new electric typewriter rather than a manual typewriter you were sitting at, you would have a great joy, except at the end of the year you would have gained an extra 6 pounds. Because the energy expenditure between typing on a manual typewriter versus typing on an electric typewriter at the time is the equivalent of 6 pounds. Now start to put a couple other things together. You have an opportunity to hike up the stairs or the escalator. Now those are just single incidences and so forth, but the typewriter illustration is significant. And if you think of what happened since the late 70s or early 70s, to now where we have computers which do virtually everything, and we don't even have to get out of the chair, That is an additional 10 to 12 pounds perhaps in a year. And if you live 10 years, that's 100 to 120 pounds. So you have to think about little things mean a lot. And while we see that in relationships as well, it's the same thing in physical activity. And for those of you who think you're fit, just remember, I like to pride myself in saying I do an hour and a half of exercise a day. That sounds great. But the other 22 and a half hours, I'm totally sedentary. To give you an idea of how that has changed in our culture, in 1939, the average male had to eat 3,000 calories a day to keep his weight on. The average female was 2,400. Today, the average male burns 2,400 calories a day. That's 600 missing calories. That's 60 pounds in a year. And the average female has dropped from 2,400 to 1,800. So you have to figure ways, and as the session goes on, we can talk about what some of those little things are, but I think that's really important for us to think about whether you're fit or not fit.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, no?
Is that okay? Hi. My big tip is hydrate. I drink a lot of water. Beth sees me all the time. She's with me right now. I carry it with me everywhere I go. So hydrating is really, really important to stay healthy and for weight loss. I also, you need to watch, don't drink your calories. Pops, sodas, coffees, that kind of stuff really adds up real quick. And then another tip that I use for myself is in the dining commons, we've got those flat plates, and then we have the little small salad plates. I find myself going towards the salad plate to kind of control my portion size, and that really seems to help with my weight loss. I'm a mother of two. I gained a lot of weight during my pregnancies, and I try to exercise every day, whether it's, running with my kids or walking my dog. I go to the field house, so.
I'm just going to tag on a couple things that I heard Charlie say in an example. A former colleague, Ted Comden, and Charlie and Ted are good friends. And Ted used to say, he still can say, he's still alive, so he still would say that every time I come to a flight of stairs, I as best as possible, I just kind of hustle up the stairs. Just one simple thing. And like what Charlie said, little things count, little things matter. And what that does, it kicks up your metabolism. Just for those few seconds, especially the flight of stairs at the field house. We've got a long one over there. And then one thing that Brenda said about drinking your calories, there are some estimates that Americans drink 25% of their calories, which doesn't need to happen. So there are plenty of beverages that you can consume that don't have any calories. One thing, and I'm really glad that you had the verse of the year up here, and I think it's really important. So it's not a to-do tip. It's a way to think tip that's really foundational for me, and it's that you are worth taking care of. And I'm going to expand on this a little bit. I think as adults, a lot of times we're busy taking care of our job, taking care of our kids, taking care of our everything else, and we say, well, something's got to get cut, so I'll just cut taking care of myself. And we undervalue ourselves. And the scripture says that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. That means we're to love ourselves, and it's okay to love ourselves, not in a pious way, not over love, but enough to take care of ourselves. If we take care of ourselves, we're better. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mom. I'm a better teacher. I'm better at relationships if I'm taking care of myself. And so there are a lot of different directions we could go with that, but you are worth taking care of. And when we say, well, I'm not going to take care of myself, it's really not being thankful for what we have been blessed with. So I'm trying to give each of us license to say, you know what, I'm worth it. I can take care of myself and in essence help everyone around me.
Already have one? Is it working? Okay. I guess my tip is going to change a little bit towards food. Thinking about how you fill your plate
how you select your snacks. You've probably seen it out in the grocery stores, there's a big marketing hijack happening right now with how companies, food industry is labeling foods, where they're labeling that you're going to get a whole serving of grains or a whole serving of vegetable in this box of snack bars, or these beverages that are meal replacement drinks. Lots of wording on the labeling, even in the pastas that we're buying, where they're saying they have omega-3 fatty acids in them, or they have so many grains of whole grain serving. Those kinds of things are meant to encourage us to buy. And if we can know that that's a market ploy to get our dollars, and we have to remember, how do we really want to buy, how do we really want to eat? We want to move towards and stay towards those whole foods and eat healthy whole foods and stay away from, it's so easy to grab a chocolate flavored breakfast replacement bar and think that we're getting so many grams of fiber and so many servings of grain and so much vitamin C and so many nutrients in those products. But when you think about some of these products that, for example, have an example of pop chips, I don't know if you see pop chips out in the market, but they claim to have, they're snack food, and they claim to be, to contain 9 vegetables. Well, there's more dehydrated potato in that snack chip than any other vegetable in there, and there's more tapioca starch than any beet, spinach, pumpkin, tomato, or red bell pepper powder that they purport that is in that product. And there's more salt than kale powder in that snack chip. And when you think about it, these are all vegetable powders. Do we really want to eat a snack chip that has powdered vegetables in it, as opposed to eating the real thing? So let's try and re-educate ourselves and move in the direction of eating a little bit healthier with those things. One more example, almond milk. A lot of people are going for almond milk. They think it's a great healthy product. Well, there is one particular brand of almond milk out there that have an 8-ounce glass. You're thinking you're going to get that 8-ounce glass of almond milk chock full of almond-rich nutrients. There are 4 almonds in that glass. There's 1 gram of protein in that glass, whereas if you drink a glass of skim milk, you have 8 grams of protein. So let's not let the industry deceive us, and really try and educate ourselves and eat better. And it's not about the numbers and the nutrients as much as just saying, go to a farmer's market and buy the things that are whole and fresh, and really gravitating towards that. And that's why I gave the little handout of trying to eat more of a healthy diet. This kind of a meal plan is in line with the DASH study and also the Omni Heart study, in terms of trying to plan into your day 11 servings of fruits and vegetables, and 4 servings of grains, 2 servings of low-fat dairy, 2 servings of legumes and nuts, 1 serving, which is a 4-ounce serving of a protein source, which is way much less than what we're accustomed to eating. I tried this plan. I'm trying this plan every day, and I tell you that in order to get that many fruits and vegetables in every day, it's a challenge. I had to actually make a spinach, berry, skim milk shake in order to get 3 vegetables and fruits in my body in the morning to start the day, in order to hit that 11 by the end of the day. Because as I would go through this process, they had a checklist. I would find that by the end of every day, I was still short those 11 fruits and vegetables. So it is a challenge, and I copied this for all of you. There's a copy on the back desk if you didn't get it, to help you out with that program and see if you can hit it just as much as I'm trying to hit it.
I have one. Okay, I wanted everybody else to go first because I had trouble narrowing it down to 1. So, and I'm probably going to sneak 2 in. But first I want to just give you permission to not feel like you have to run to get your exercise. Okay, there are a lot of different ways to move, and a big reason for people not exercising is that they don't enjoy it. And if I went around the room, how many of you really love to exercise? You get up, yeah, there's always one. So I would say yes, just counting up. We love to move, so sometimes it's hard to put us into your shoes. But this is your permission that you do not have to use running as the exercise. Everybody thinks, oh, I hate running, and that's the first response I get whenever I talk to people about exercising. What you need to do is get your heart rate up. You can go to the playground and play with your kids or grandkids. Go out there instead of sitting on the bench reading a book, which is still good, reading's awesome. But go out and play with your kids. Find an activity that you enjoy doing, that you can do for at least 20 minutes to get yourself out and moving. They even say if you can get in 30 minutes a day of exercise or a physical activity, you can break that up. So if you're busy and you can't, carve out the hour it takes to get changed, go to the gym, come back home, then use your time, park away from the building, and brisk walk 10 minutes to your building in the morning. At lunchtime, brisk walk out to your car to get your lunch, and come back in. At the end of the day, you're brisk walking back out to your car. So those are some ways that you can get moving in there. Setting up some circuits with just some fun, colorful balls are always a good idea. Hula hooping's fun, jump roping. Pull out kids' toys. That's one of the best ways to get yourself back moving. But you have permission, unless you love running, you do have permission to not use that as your main exercise. So a lot of it, and like we've heard over and over, it's the little things that you're doing that make the biggest difference. Little things in nutrition, picking real food over a box food, taking extra steps. My kids, a big joke, I told them when they were really little, if you push the door open, it's an extra calorie that you've just burned instead of standing there and letting it open for you. So whenever we're out, that's their big joke of how many times they can run through the door to burn their calories. So I think maybe that's it. Think like a kid, start using movement to be fun. The other thing I'm going to sneak in is sleep. Make sure you're getting your hours of sleep at night. There's a reason our bodies were created to need rest, and the time you spend sleeping is the time that your body can recover from the stressful day. It keeps the hormones in balance, and it will help you then be able to exercise the next day. A lot of people are like, well, I'm too tired, too fatigued. So there's a vicious cycle that's happening, and you do need those hours of sleep at night. So make it a point just to go to bed a little bit sooner, start calming yourself down. At the end of the day, go through some relaxation so that you can then fall asleep and sleep through the night.
I realize it's not my turn, but I'm going to jump in real quick because I wanted to talk about sleep, and I have a class that I have to get to. But, so thanks, Beth, for bringing up sleep. I think my family thinks I'm a sleep Nazi because when it's 9 o'clock and they're not in bed, I'm like, you're supposed to be in bed. You're supposed to be in bed. You're not in bed. And I suppose it's because I found it so important for myself. Many of you know that last year we weren't living here in the U.S. and we were in Kenya. And I felt really good a lot of the year. And we had this joke that, we'd go to sleep at Missionary Midnight, which, I was going to sleep at 9:30 a lot of times, 10, almost 10 at the latest. And I get up at 6 every morning because it would be sunny. And it was light at 6 every morning, so I could go work out. But I felt so good all year, and I realized that one of the factors was I was getting at least 8 hours of sleep every night. And now, back here, I'm at like 7 and a half, and I'm cheating myself. And you go, oh, it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal because I probably am losing an entire sleep cycle by cutting off half an hour to an hour. And your body really does recognize those rhythms. But another thing I wanted to say about sleep, it's not overrated. I hear people say, oh, sleep's overrated, like you're superhuman if you can get by on 5 hours of sleep. But our bodies aren't designed to work that way. And Beth mentioned hormones, and two that I just want to mention briefly, and you'll say, no wonder, when we're sleep deprived, besides the fact that new tasks or new things that we learn, they go from short-term to long-term memory when we're sleeping. And if we don't get adequate rest, we lose that. Whether it's basketball drills that we're learning or whatever it happens to be. I said that because Coach Cottingham's here. We need to get enough sleep to put that in long-term memory. But there are two hormones called leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin, it's not gremlin, I tell my students, but you can call it that if you want. But it's the go hormone. It's the hormone that says go find food. And when we are sleep deprived, that hormone is triggered. And so that's usually what we want to do when we're tired. And when we're tired, we don't make very good choices. And then leptin is the satiety hormone that says, hey, I'm okay, I feel satisfied. And that hormone is triggered more when we have had adequate rest. So it's a disease.
Okay. Some of them have to head out early, but we did want to open it up for questions. So we have two options for you for questions. Obviously the old-fashioned way of raising your hand. But if you have one that you just really would not like to ask in the forum here, you can text it in to, it's anonymous, send a text message to 22333, and you have to start the message with SAU Health, no spaces. And those will come anonymously to the secretary. We can convey those. But you know, with the subject of health, we want to make it anonymous. If you wanted to ask an anonymous question, but if you're good to ask a question, anybody? Brian.
Yeah, I'll go back to sleep. We were just talking about. It's great if you can get 8 to 10 hours, but that's not always realistic. How important? How much value do naps play? I'm even thinking of from our athletes to us. Advice on naps, and does it need to be consistent? Charlie, can you help elaborate on that?
I can't give you the latest data, but historically it's been that it is very effective. Even if it's a 10-minute or up to a 30-minute nap. I recognize that at night, people have a little hard time getting to bed in time and that type of thing. But I have to concur with what Deb had said. As I've aged, I have discovered that I didn't sleep very well. And I would get up in the middle of the night and I would read and go back to bed. So while I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but I started taking melatonin, and in the last 6 months, I've gotten 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep at night. And I wake up, but when I do wake up, I start reading and I fall asleep in the chair. La la land. But there's evidence to support what you're saying, is that it is effective. But I've also found that some people sleep later in the day, and then they have difficulty falling asleep at night, so it's counterproductive.
You know, I was gonna, to tack on to that, I know what happens here on campus, because my students, when I talk about sleep in class, they're all like, yeah, right. And I'm like, hey, I was a college student. So, but you can still plan your day. And I love that Ron Capico goes into the core groups and talks about how to plan your day and try to break the vicious cycle of not being able to get that time at night. I think the time at night is the best way to go. So we usually talk about good, better, best a lot. And so the best way is to get those 8 hours of sleep at night. If you can't, an earlier nap during the day is still helpful, still to give your body rest, to kind of play a little bit of catch up, but you don't want to get too far into the evening. And also, if you find that you're exercised later in the day, you might have trouble falling asleep, so you have to think about that, as well as when do you stop your caffeine intake, or do you need to decrease the amount of caffeine that you are intaking, or cut caffeine out of your diet. Every person, and this is something I loved what Deb said about you are worthy, because you also have to think about every person in here is a created individual, that God has purposely created you to fulfill His plan for your life. And because of that, you all are going to respond to different tips that we give, to different things that you hear out there. But always think about, what do I need to do to make that happen? And so think about the caffeine in relation to not being able to get sleep as well, and to maybe quit using that to try to stay awake during the day.
No, that's fine. That's great.
Let me add something to the caffeine. My wife, Beth, cannot have any caffeine after 12 noon. If it goes on beyond that, so it's not such a question of at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, it may be earlier. Also, some diet pops that you may be consuming may also trigger a nervous-like syndrome. So you need to be somewhat cautious, because that produces a lot of insomnia with people, particularly women.
Can I bounce off the deck? Sorry.
This is exactly what I was hoping for. So this is
Okay, we're okay. I was just presenting in class yesterday talking about water, and that we should be replacing a lot of our drinks with water. And one of the statistics that I told my students, that I'm like, the general population needs to know this. 41% increase in the rate of obesity in people who have 1 diet soda a day. Diet soda is not your answer. I do want to say that. If you're trying to get healthy, and that's the other thing I want to throw in, work on being healthy. Everybody's different. Work on being healthy, not being skinny. Difference there. But diet soda isn't the answer in those scenarios.
Good. Other questions? Anybody out there?
What about Propel or some of those waters that are zero cal? Do you have, any of you guys have?
Do you guys want to go ahead? Okay. Told you I had a lot of opinion. To be honest, I like water the best. It's straight up. I'm also an iced tea drinker, hot tea drinker. Those are probably my two go-tos. My issues with some of the drinks is then the artificial sweeteners, and that's part of the problem in the diet sodas is the fact that you're introducing something to your body that it doesn't recognize, and it is increasing a craving for more sweet. Because you're trying to trick your body by it being sweet, but it's not really. And so your body's saying, whoa, wait, this isn't right, so I need more. So I would say be careful with the flavored drinks. And like Charlie had talked about with the nervous system, a lot of artificial sweeteners can cause some types of hallucinations. They do interfere with that nervous system quite a bit in the body. So you do need to be careful, and you also need to be careful, with sports drinks and those types of things. Sports drinks are meant for athletes that are working hard, and we usually say if it's over an hour of constant activity and it's warm outside, that might be when you need a sports drink. Kids don't need sports drinks just running around during the day. So introducing that to them young kind of creates a lifelong thing. If you're in the gym and you're working out on the treadmill and you're drinking a Gatorade, the amount of calories that you are burning on the treadmill, you have just ingested by drinking the Gatorade.
Going back to the water, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Going back to the water, I use the Young Living essential oils, and so I use the grapefruit and or the lemon, so it's all natural. You can't put it in plastic, it has to be in glass, so that's why I carry the glass around, but it's a nice alternative to the Propel or the soapy.
I would agree.
While we're bashing the drinks, while we're bashing those, also keep in mind with women and men, obviously, there is a problem with diet beverages and pop in particular with respect to bone demineralization, which is osteoporosis. And so you'll find many people who are trying to keep their weight off, minimize calcium intake, and maximize pop, which it will contribute greatly. This is whether it's diet pop or just regular pop. It'll contribute greatly to accelerated bone demineralization, which versus osteoporosis. Starts with osteopenia and then osteoporosis. So you may want to consider that.
Just to add on to that, that's all pop, regular pop and sugar-free pop. That does have the phosphorus load in it that's going to leach your bone minerals and your calcium on your bones. So we all have to be aware of that. Try to be what we see in the dining commons is many of the students of this generation have gone away from the pop as a choice of beverage and then moving towards of course, it's the juices and the flavored sports drinks and things of that sort. So not necessarily the most healthy replacement either, because then we're drinking all those extra sugars. But we also see them moving towards water too, and just encouraging back to the whole water piece is such an important focus.
Great. Yeah.
We were talking about powdered vegetables earlier, and I was wondering if I drink a smoothie with this powdered green stuff that I put in there. And it's supposed to contain 5 vegetables in the soup. What do you guys know or what do you think about like green powders?
Can I just say something about the powders? I'm just not a proponent of that. I'd rather see you take a big old handful of spinach or kale and put that in your drink and get the real nutrients in that product, because the powders, they first of all, they're pre-digested for you in a sense, so that the satiety that you get from a full piece of fruit or vegetable that holds you over is not going to be in that powder so much because it's already broken down.
Can I add something on the exercise side of things? I want to take it from 2 points of view. One, the person who is totally sedentary. I have a phrase that I usually tell people: don't lie down when you can sit, don't sit when you can stand, don't stand when you can walk. And that's just a way of starting to think about, well, I'm sitting here, I can also be standing here. My mentor, Bob Rodale, used to stand all day at a standing desk, and because he knew he couldn't get much exercise. He would walk to work and walk back to work, but during the day, that sedentary period, instead of just sitting at a desk, he just decided to stand. And since he wanted his upper body to have some exercise, right in front of him he had an arm device in which he could just stand there and move his arms, as well as his legs as he was standing. So you can start out in the simplest of ways. Now, when you start getting involved in an exercise program that's going to be serious, let's say it's walking, which I think is the best form of exercise for the great majority of Americans, you can start with 5 minutes. But to do this, I think you have to carve this time out of your day. Not something you're going to add in at the end or something like that, or do something early in the morning because you have a hard time getting up. You need to say, okay, I'm going to devote a half hour to some form of exercise, whatever that happens to be. And I have a couple hints along the way that I wrote quickly before I came here. The first thing to try doing is to make sure you pick something which is enjoyable for you, as Beth had just mentioned. At the same time, pick the same time of day, or the same time during the day, or the same day of the week. So if it's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then you stick to that. If it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We are creatures of habit. And to avoid being a creature of habit, it's practically impossible. You know, you get upset when somebody doesn't deliver the newspaper on time, if there is a newspaper anymore. Another thing is exercise with a friend, maybe. Some people like to do it lone style, and others prefer to hang out with a friend. Some people, you know, it's a walkie-talkie. They're on the road walking and talking to this other person, and they get lost in that kind of activity. The next thing you need to think about is the think department. Again, I think Beth addressed this. Think of yourself as an active human being, not as a sedentary person. It's a mind shift. And you do have to convince yourself that you can do this, that this is something extra. You're not going to have to be this athlete that goes out and works out for an hour and a half, or a Ryan Cunningham who's going to go out and do all these crazy things with my son. You want to find some moment of time that you can find in the day that you can be consistent with. And again, be cautious of doing it late at night because sometimes that stimulates you. If you like music, play music as you're exercising. Also, add some active friends to your group. You think about it. If you have active friends, you'll be active. If you have sedentary friends, you'll be sedentary. It's just nature. Avoid sitting before and after dinner. Make it a point to get up and move around rather than just sitting there. I know it's hard to do that at Thanksgiving time for various reasons. But at the same time, think consciously of how I can move around. Even if it's only for 4 or 5 minutes, that will add to it. Look at before pictures. Take a picture of yourself before, say this is what I am now, and then come back and look at it periodically. These are just simple mechanical things, but I think sometimes people just think it's easy to think in terms of, well, I'm going to do this early in the morning, I'm going to do this later in the day. You pick the time that's best for you, and you'll find that you can stick to it. Tell people that you're active. You know the old story, if you're going to tell people what you just did, you're afraid they're going to come back and ask you later. So you remind yourself when you have those low moments to make sure that you stick with it, because somebody's going to ask me, are you still exercising? And the embarrassment usually, no, I sort of gave up, I didn't have enough time, or that kind of thing. The next thing you need to think about is to, as I said, think about something which is really enjoyable. And this is not, most people do like to walk when they're walking with a friend. But there are other forms of exercise that I think Beth was highlighting, which are excellent ideas. Whether it's playing with your children, making a playground in your own yard, which could just be a couple old tires, or it could be ropes or whatever. And kids are going to do that. And you're going to be encouraged to be out there and be involved with them. So you have to set a stage to make sure that you're successful. Too often we make a New Year's resolution. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to do this. But we don't think about all these other elements that are necessary for you to consider as you are putting an exercise program into place. And you'll find after a period of time you start with 5 minutes, but remember you start out with thinking about 30 minutes. Maybe the first time you can only handle 5 minutes, that's fine. Then go to 15 or 10. Keep gradually adding to it. Don't try to do it all at once. I know my son-in-law was a physical therapist and I had a back problem, and he said, I asked him what to do because of my back issue. And he said, here are a series of exercises, but do not do more than what I tell you to do. Well, watch show me. I said, well, I'll double everything he told me. I couldn't walk for a week. And these exercises were so simple, but they were so different from what I was used to. And I'm just giving you a cautionary measure that follow, just make progress slowly. It doesn't have to be done overnight. You've taken a long time to lose all that physical activity that you had as a child. Now you're going to reintroduce yourself. So be cautious, but be consistent, and plan ahead.
Other questions out there? I had a thought on the standing desk, and I've had coworkers that have tried that, and you know, there's a cost factor to changing your office around. What are your thoughts on, I know I've seen other people implement one of those big balls to sit on that. Is that, I'm guessing what your answer is going to be, but what's the value there? Is that worthwhile?
What are you guessing? What is that?
I'm guessing you're going to say that. That's probably a good idea because at least there's more movement.
There's more movement when you're compared to when you're sitting. Excuse me. There's more movement than when you're sitting on a ball because you're trying to balance yourself and you're a little awkward at first. And a lot of times, improvement that people make in fitness early on has to do with spastic movements. When they run, they're awkward. They're not used to running. They haven't run for 20 or 30 years. So their movements are awkward and hence they're burning more calories. It's the same thing. We're sitting here, nice and calm. You're sitting there nice and calm. But think of yourself sitting on a 36-inch ball trying to hold yourself up there. You're going to be burning more calories. And they're minimal. And eventually, guess what happens? Your body acclimatizes to that, so you aren't burning as many calories. So some of the things you have as a result of that, you get this plateau. You start out losing weight, and then it levels off. Well, guess what? That means you need a little more activity, or incorporate some more awkward movements when you're doing it.
Another thing along the lines of sitting at the desk is about every 20 to 30 minutes, you should be getting up. I know I've lost track of time before, and then when I stand up, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been sitting too long. Every 20 to 30 minutes, you should be getting up and moving, doing something, even if it's just standing up and doing a couple squats or a couple jumping jacks or whatever. But with that sitting, just the stress on the body is bad. The muscles tighten up, and then it's harder to move. There's a whole vicious cycle there. But doing whatever you can, and I say rotate, maybe stand if you can at a desk for a while, or incorporate the ball, try out different things and see what works for you.
When you think of body concept, self-concept, and you're female, your primary focus is what? Weight. Did I say something radical here? I've said it 50 years. Do not depend upon the scale. The scale is a false measure. It's sort of like the stock market. It's very emotional. It has no sanity to it. It's all over the place. I will weigh myself once a year. When I'm down in Florida, I have a scale which is a digital scale, so I stand on it. And my weight fluctuates 5 pounds within a month, and sometimes 3 pounds overnight. We went out for Chinese, or we went out for Japanese food, we had too much sodium, which I retained very quickly. Fluid, I gained 3 pounds. That's totally meaningless. That is only fluid. Your menstrual cycle will cause issues with that. We have to get away from the idea of the scale. The best thing is, when you're losing weight. How do you know it? Things are a little looser. It's that simple. Scale does not tell you that. And I know I'm talking to people that they don't agree. I have to blame myself. It's the only way I can trust it. I'm telling you, the scale is false. And most of the time, the scales, except some of these digital scales, are highly inaccurate. Depends where you put it. If you don't have it the same spot on the floor all the time, it's going to be different. So I'm cautioning you, if you're worried about body weight, and while we're talking about exercise, I think the emphasis should be, as I've heard here, is on eating right, and getting plenty of exercise, and letting nature take its course. The scale is a nemesis. I'm just telling you that. It is self-defeating. So think about it, and just throw it out in the trash. It doesn't work.
Okay, well, we're about out of time on the panel. We've got a couple things we have to do, give away some prizes yet. So thanks to the panel for coming today.